Hey, am I going? I don't know if I'm broadcasting to the right page here. Nope, there it is. Hey, Charles McFall here, EMS Underground. My computer was not showing that I was broadcasting to the right place, so I do apologize. As you can see, kind of got a little bit of a different setup today. As, as we do, nothing stays the same here at Georgia Institute of EMS, and I am in the side studio. We've redone it to where my office is now going to be behind me, as you can see here in this big shot. I've got the side studio good on behind. Oh, also I mute my own thing, and then we've got the recording studio right next to it, so it can get the door shut. It's a nice little private area. It works a little better and leaves that walk through there open. So yeah, that's what's going on. And yeah, let's see if I move this around to get a little better shot here. Because I'm going to be playing off of the tablet today. Because I am it today. Tom has gone. And I did change up my microphone as well because we're in this new room. There's nothing on the wall. It's just a little echoey. It drives me a little crazy. But that's all right. It's all a process. So 2 big things happened this week. I went to the instructor update. Now, this is the same instructor update that I went to in Savannah. And, Tom and I came back and we had a whole lot of things to say about what was going on in Savannah and how David presented David Newton and what we thought he was going to be doing and where he wanted to go. And so we decided, hey, there's one almost literally in our backyard. It's figuratively in our backyard because it's about 3 blocks away, but, almost literally in our backyard, right? So we need to go. We need to go and keep pushing on this. What's up, Nathan? How's it going, man? So we need to keep pushing on this topic. We need to keep arguing against certain things and see how things have changed. And sure enough, lots of big changes from Savannah. So I will talk about that. We'll talk about what's going on with that. And then today I went to the Region 3 EMS Council meeting. And for the most part, standard reports on grants are due for, I think, the Trauma Council by December 1st. If you've got stuff you want to get done, there's ambulance equipment grants out there. All this, standard reporting on this. And that's the end of the year, right? This is the last meeting for 2019. And it was very interesting time there. So I went back to the big shot here just so, I don't know, it's kind of a cool studio look. It's got this feel to it. And I want to focus down on my computer here for just a moment. And I'm going to pull up my notes. These notes are on the phone. So I had that today. But the interesting thing here at the meeting today was Grady had to do another report. And we're still dragging Dekalb through the reporting process, right? Dekalb County, and the RFP is still not closed when originally it's supposed to be closed late spring, early summer. But I've got information on all of that as well. So I'm going to be talking about that. Now, before I move on, as you know, if you are a patron, I'll say it right here in a second. If you are, no, it doubles up. All right. That'd be nice if they made it to where it's swapped. But if you're a patron over at 911 Studios, that's Patreon. Dang it, I don't even have it spelled right in the stupid header. I just realized that. But it's patreon.com. And I am going to see if I can't edit. I cannot edit that while I'm live. Crap. How about I long press it? Because this is killing me. I got to fix this. And that is not the right site. I cannot believe that I've done this long. Like that, patreon.com, 911 Studios. All right. And there it is. If you're a patron, you will get the ad-free version of this show by all means. And it's the same content, just without me talking about Patreon as much and or talking about what I'm about to talk about. This show is brought to you by Grasshopper.com. Grasshopper is for all of us entrepreneurs in this space, right, in this world that need a phone, right? But we're on the ambulances. We have our side businesses. We've got our hustles going on. We've got bigger plans, but we need that business phone. So if you go to grasshopper.com, let's try grasshopper.com EMS Underground, you will get $50 off on your order. So that's trygrasshopper.com/EMS Underground, and that will help us out, and that will help you out hopefully in your business. So again, we're in 911 Studios here, and I am about to throw down some info. What's up, Bridget? How's it going? Now, one more thing before I carry on here. We do have a National Registry Advanced Psychomotor coming up, and I think we're still looking for preceptors and proctors rather. So if you are interested, we need A's and P's, right? Advanced and paramedics to be proctors for our test. And we'll feed you if it goes that long. Sometimes it's done really fast and we don't get to the lunchtime, but you also get paid no matter what. So there is some limited room for EMTs as well to volunteer. Now, it's very limited on what EMTs can do as preceptors or proctors. I keep mixing those words up. It's not the right word. You're not a preceptor, you're a proctor. So it's definitely limited on what EMTs can do to proctor an exam. But we definitely still need patients, right? We need people to come in and be bodies. So if you are interested in helping out with that, email me, charles@gaiems.com, and we'll get you that information and see. And I got to check with Vanessa and see if we actually still need people, but I think we're still looking for people. So just because you apply doesn't mean you'll get to teach or get to proctor it. But if you're interested, let us know. All right. So the good stuff going on here. So the EMS update, the instructor update. I went in there. It was at Legion Field. And let me pull up. Where is the notes? It automatically put my notes from today on there. Is that? No, I got it backwards. The notes from today are on my phone. The notes... yes, the notes from that day are on my computer. Okay, so I walked in expecting to see David Newton, right? And I'll be honest, I was looking to give him some help. I was looking forward to kind of poking at him a little bit, going, oh, you still think paramedics need to have degrees on everything, David? You hadn't had enough grief about that? So David was not there. He got called away to do another meeting. And I know he is the head of the EMS. He's the EMS director for the state of Georgia, however his title is. Somebody called him Dr. Newton today and then immediately corrected it to Mr. Newton. I think technically he has a PhD, I think, but a medical doctor was like, no, I'm going to call him Mr. Newton. So he was not there. But I think which has been changed. So in the original update that Tom and I and everybody else here at the school went to, it went almost immediately to instructor levels. And I mean, glossed over a whole lot of stuff. And, here's the GymSys Elite system that people are doing reports in. Just moved on and jumped to here's how you're going to teach. And it was just a lot of information, a lot of fast stuff. Some stuff that Tom wasn't clear about, he wanted me to get some clarification on. And then, of course, it gets into the accreditation. And originally, it sounded like it was David's idea. He wasn't very clear that there was a national standard that had been released, a new update to the national standards, and that was their recommendation. So he very much felt like Georgia. I mean, immediately I'm raising my hand going, wait a minute, you just said lots of little schools can't afford accreditation. We all know there's a problem with staffing in the state of Georgia, right? We are shorthanded. We need more people on the trucks. So, and now you're saying you want to go to accreditation. And he was kind of mixing his messages. I don't think he intended to. I don't know David that well, but I'm going to go with what's said in that moment. And that's why I'm asking for clarification, and I'm pushing on it. And I don't know, maybe it's the fact that I pushed that he got defensive and he pushed back, and it was a mess. And Tom and I reported on that. You can go check out that episode. So we get in there now, and I think it's Julie is her name. I think that was her name. I'm sorry that I didn't write it down. But that she was very intentional on this is the system. This is how it needs to work. We need to teach NEMSIS recording. Well, actually, it's GEMSIS, right? It's a Georgia version, but it reports in NEMSIS with this National EMS Information System. And you can go look at nemsis.org and the different things that they have going on there. That's where they collect data on a national level. And she really did a great job on explaining what's going on with reporting and why we need it, where the data dictionary comes from and that's the thing with EMS Underground. I like to ask the questions and for all of us to kind of come together and find the answers, right? And I've always been great at being the loudmouth. I've always been great at saying, hey, I'm going to say what I believe everybody else is thinking, and even if they're not thinking it, I sure as hell am thinking it, so I'm going to say it. And a lot of times it turns out a lot of people are thinking it, right? So that's what I do with my voice at the meetings. That's what I do with my voice here on the show. I'm going to ask the questions. And, one of the questions I had there that I didn't bother to ask was, why do I care as an instructor about elite and all this reporting that you just glossed over? We don't teach documentation very well in schools. It's a very small chapter. The lab is lumped in with other stuff. And that's really an HR thing. That's really, to me, thank you, Nathan, for sending the email. That is really, to me, an orientation thing. I remember having many jobs in my career, and each of those wanted me to document a little bit differently. Now, they use the same form, right? But when I was in school, I learned the stick figure form. When I got out of school, and as I was getting out of school, they had the long red form. And I did that. And I remember when we went to the short red form, that was done, had all this extra stuff on it. So I went through some of these transition changes. I did not stay in the field long enough for it to transfer to the digital forms. So yeah, while we still use the same form, one company wanted me to use SOT. One company wanted me to make sure I dotted in these dots in this certain way, but these dots, don't worry about them. It was a little bit of a mixed message. So I've always had the opinion that documentation is an HR problem. That is an orientation issue. That is not the case. They really want us to teach this universal documentation because it makes our students more hireable, which I'll be honest, sure. As an instructor, I want my students to know they're going to get a job when they get out of here. But it also, as instructors, as data analysts, as people who we get the results of these studies first because we have to teach it in Con Ed and we have to teach it in initial education. So she did a really good job explaining why we need to fill out these boxes, how these boxes, why they're different. And I love teaching people how to do things correctly. I enjoyed that. So I enjoyed that part of it. And now I started making notes of, we can do this Con Ed. We need to expand our class. We need to do a 2-hour lecture on how to document because one, documentation is legally important, right? That is very much what we need to be aware of. So if we go to court, that kind of thing. And so, but beyond that, I should have put this on Do Not Disturb. At least muted it. That was my bad, yo. So we need to teach documentation for that, but also with the science, NEMSIS and GEMSIS. GEMSIS is a Georgia EMS information system, and NEMSIS is the National EMS information system. Those systems are identifying true areas of trouble, right? Issues where there's more occurrence of opioid abuse or issues of response times or, stroke and how much we need to educate this part of the state on stroke and fast. And maybe we have, you get what I'm saying. So that's important. And we as instructors need that information because then we're going to build the Con Ed on it. So then we get it back to you of going, here are the updates. Here's the stuff that we've learned since you last learned something 2 years ago, that kind of thing. So it was very informative and we spent a lot of time on that and that was very good. And I made notes about what we need to be doing as far as instructors on that. And then they're going to start putting on these elite workshops. Elite is the system that they use to document. And schools are going to start having to use this. We talked about this before going, man, David just dropped the bomb on, well, you have to put at least one team lead on everything in there. And I went, bing, but EMTs don't do team leads. Well, they're going to now. Well, when? January 1st. I mean, he was very bulldog about it. It very much rubbed me the wrong way. I still get mad when I think about it. I'm like, communication is our business, man. being paramedics, you might think, oh, I need to know this acid-base balance, or I might need to know the deepest level of each algorithm because I'm here to save lives. No, you're here to communicate. You're here to figure out what the body is saying if they're unconscious, unresponsive, interpret that and communicate that to the hospital and do some actions. You're here to convince the patients who need to go to the hospital that need to go. You're here to educate the public when they don't need to call 911. Take them to the hospital. I'm not telling you how to do your job. I am saying, hey, you got a kid with a fever. The first question out of my mouth is, have you given them Tylenol? No. Well, I'm going to check the temperature. It's 101 degrees. Sure, that's a little bit of a fever. Give them some Motrin. Give them some Tylenol. We're here to educate. There's all these things there. And I didn't feel like David was doing a good job of that. I really didn't. However, this second run through, much better job. So they're going to be putting on actual elite workshops once they get schools into the elite system so that we can have our students document things. It is free. Yes, they're going to start adding team leads to EMTs in advance, but the language is now changed to sometime next year. It's not January 1st, and that means some of the language in the slides has been changed to proposed. This is the proposed way we're going to do things. So they've done the two in Savannah. They've done two others, I think, since then, before they got to Newton County. So I'm sure they've had a lot of feedback, a lot of pushback. I did get called out a little bit. I don't know if she meant to do it or if it just triggered, but she started to say when we got to the paramedic degrees, right? Which I will get back to that in a second. I'll get back to that in a second because I want to go through my notes here. But we talked about they're working on getting educational institutions into this, and it's going to be a separate elite system, right? Kind of a sandbox, because our reports don't need to be linked to the hospital and to the patients and all that. They're student reports. They're going to have mistakes. They're going to be somewhat poorly written because it takes time and practice to get that report going on there. So they're working on it. So once the schools get in, then they're going to do these workshops so that we can then learn how to teach our students. But that gives our students practice. Now, they will need to do, once that's instituted, they'll need to do a team lead in there. If we want to use it for more, we can. Supposedly, it does not connect to what we use, Platinum, or to what other people use, FISDAP, because those are not KHEP compliant. They're not compliant with accreditation. Or with NMSIS reporting. They're not compliant with NMSIS reporting, I think is what it's saying. So that's a thing, right? So we're going to have to teach kind of two different ways to do things, but it's okay. We can work that out here at our school. It's no big deal. Now, Georgia will be requirements will be deepening the education programs, so we'll need to adjust classes, right? They're going to be this national standard, this national recommendation came out, National Standards recommendation came out, and it added things that levels could do, like EMT, and Georgia's not adopting all of them. And that's the thing. That's where it got crazy with David. That's where it drove me nuts, is you're just going down and going, this. Well, you're not even doing all of it, and you're acting like you're taking credit for it. I just want to smack you in the face, man. It's so irritating because it's one way. It's I'm telling you what to do, is what without room for questions, without explanation. Again, the second one was a little bit better. But this national standard recommendation, Georgia's adopting some of it. Georgia is going to adopt a lot of it, actually. And so, like, one of the things is EMTs will be, and I have to stress will because it's not adopted yet. You have to watch for the emails that go out saying this is now the new standard. It'll go to your places at your practice, to your service providers, and then they'll adjust their protocols, and they'll have in-services and those kind of things. But basically, EMTs will be able to transport pre-established INTs. Now, it wasn't clear that it was IVs, and I don't have it in front of me to go look at the slide, but a double basic truck, right, technically cannot transport a patient from one facility to another if they already have a IV put in place. It had to be DC'd first, and then they could take them. They still won't be able to do anything with it. They're still not going to hook up bags of fluid. They're not going to do any IV administration. Nothing like that yet. I say yet because things change in the future. But it will change to say you can transport them. Stuff like that. I mean, things are going on. Those kind of things. blood is on its way to the ambulance, hanging blood on a paramedic level. They're already doing, I think, some test runs in different regions here in Georgia, and that's a national standard that's been recommended. They're moving towards that. Now, national standard is who recommended accreditation for a EMT. Now, that also was not clear the first time around. David, I'm pretty sure David said all levels, because Tom went right up and started. I mean, right at break, Tom it got in his face about accreditation and this and that and the other. But to be clear, the national standard is recommending advanced EMT being accredited at schools. Now, it's still going to take out a large section of EMT educators, because I did make a comment about this. I will always make a comment about this. And I'll get to what this is in a second that I'm referring to. But it's the fees, the expenses to get there. So some people, but the biggest base of education is EMT. That is the largest base, people entering the field. Where it goes from there, I don't know why it pinpoints up. But that is part of the problem, right? It pinpoints up to where very few paramedics are graduating, and then A's should be more prolific than they are. But that's where the accreditation recommendation comes from. Georgia State EMS office believes that it will happen in the future. Like it's going to be a federally mandated thing. The recommendation right now says January 1st, 2025. They're not sure that that's when it's going to happen, but that's at least a date for everybody to shoot for. Which means as educators, as initial education services, we have to be accredited to do this. And somebody said, because they're talking about coamps, and they said, it's just a few pieces of paper. Well, one, I can tell, Eric, because of the pushback a little bit, and I clarified it, but I also can tell I had to infer a whole lot of information, right? I had to figure out a whole lot of information for myself, one of which is everybody who's talking about this accreditation immediately thinks paramedic. And yes, in the state of Georgia, they converted many years back to you have to be an accredited institution to teach paramedic. And COAMPS, I believe, is the Paramedic Accreditation Board, if I'm understanding this correctly. I might not be understanding that correctly, but I believe that's what I understand to be the case. So then she says, so if you just prepare for it, we got this time, we just move towards it. So it's just a matter of a piece of paper. I had to speak. I didn't raise my hand. I had to go, it's not just a matter of a piece of paper. That's a $50,000 piece of paper. And that's where I'm having an issue. Everybody's thinking it's so easy. It's not. And somebody's like, well, it's not $50,000. It's only a few thousand. And I as I do, I went to push back. And I'm sorry. I think her name is Julie. Region 3. No, not Region 3. Region 6 EMS director. She's the EJ of her region. I think it's 6. And I am so sorry that I hope it's Julie, because if not, I'm really just way off base here on your name. But she was better explaining it. She goes, you're right. It's not just a couple thousand piece of paper. It's the getting there. I don't know why nobody wants to say it. You're not the one with the idea. You're not the one shoving the mandate down our throats. You're actually, now that you explained it better, you're actually helping us get ready, because the federal level is going to shove it down our throats, right? It's going to say, you have to do this. And you're getting us prepared. You're saying, hey, it's coming. Here's some ideas. We're going to be working on things. Why will nobody say you have to be federally accredited first? That's what costs the 50 freaking grand, if not more. That's the heavy lifting. That's the thing that you have to jump through all these freaking hoops to get. It's a F ton of work. I wanted to say it, but I'm not going to say it. It's an F ton of work. It's a lot of work to get there and a lot of money. Why aren't you just being honest about that? Because it's not you doing it. It's like me telling the students, you have to get a flu shot. I don't believe in the flu shot. I don't believe in the freaking flu shot either. I think it's the dumbest piece of crap in the world. Tom disagrees with me, but that doesn't matter, because I don't have to get the flu shot to work here. You have to get it, because if you want to go to this service over here or that service there that we have these agreements with, so you can get your hours that are state mandated hours, you have to get it. I'm sorry. I wouldn't make you get it otherwise. I don't care if you get it or not. And that's what I'm saying is somebody else is saying you have to do this. So if you want to get here, if you want to teach advanced EMT sometime after 2025, the federal government says, whoever is the authority, right? I may be misstating who the authority is here, but whoever is the authority is the one that is saying it. We're just relaying the message so that you'll be ready, and we want to help you get ready. I don't know why they're afraid to say that, but they didn't say it. She called it heavy lifting. Oh, it's the getting there, the heavy lifting. That's the hard part. Well, no crap. Once you have that, COAMPS is just, you've met all these special. Now we're just going to niche it. We're going to refine it. We're going to focus it just into A and paramedic. And okay, here's a few little extra steps you got to do. Here's a few pieces of paper, and apparently a couple $1,000, which honestly is not that much. I mean, I'm not talking for you, the EMT or paramedic, who a couple $1,000 is a couple months of bills, even possibly. I am talking about at the school level. But that is a clarification on it. It's not David Newton, although obviously he fully believes in it. He said EMT. He said the state's going to come up with its own standards. That was not mentioned in this at all, by the way. But he's like, we're going to have accreditation level type standards, and you're going to have to do this for all programs and that. And I literally said, then why are you even bothering making us pay the money to somebody else? Why are you? And he didn't have an answer for that. Well, the answer is, one, if he makes it a state thing, that's just redundant and unnecessary, in my opinion. But secondly, it's coming from somewhere else. So if you're a school and you're listening to the sound of my voice, either through the show here or on the podcast, then you need to know some kind of federal mandate is going to come down the road. Georgia State EMS office believes that it's going to be out of our hands, our being the state of Georgia, out of our hands. If you want to teach advanced and or paramedic, you're going to have accreditation. So that's going. And Vanessa just corrected me that Kelly is her name. Thank you, Vanessa, for that. I am talking about Kelly. And that's like the only time I pushed back on anything. I mean, I asked some clarification questions. I had some discussions with some other instructors as we were all kind of clarifying things. But that was it. That was the only extra that I did was the accreditation. It's like, no, stop making it sound so easy. Let's biggest problem with medicine. And as a whole, we're too damn scared to say what is, right? Nurses don't want to tell you anything on their phone because, I can't see you. And I'm making voices like I'm mocking it. I get it to a certain point, but at some point, it has to be, do you have a fever higher than 102 degrees? No. Do you have a temperature higher than 98 degrees? Yes. Are you of this age or what? No. You can do algorithms that says, give the damn kids some Tylenol. Why do I have to come into your stupid pediatric office? Why do I have to come in? You know what I'm saying? Why are we so scared to say what is? It is accreditation. It's probably going to be required. And I say probably because, in government and in anything, until it is, it isn't, right? So, but it probably will be required. So now let's help people get there. And I believe that's what they're starting on the road to do now is not necessarily David Newton. Because until he proves otherwise, my entire opinion of David Newton has been, I don't know anybody who knows you. I don't know anybody who's ever worked with you in the field as a medic, which isn't saying much. I've been out of the field for a little bit. So my two things that I gauge people by is, can I ask my friends, have they worked with you in the field and what you're like as a medic? And secondly, I spent 8 hours with you and you came off as somebody who did not care and somebody who just wanted to make their stamp. I am the new director, stamp, throw it down on the table. I don't call it stamp when I'm not on the air, but you know what I'm talking about. Throw it right down on the table and left a mark. That's what it came off as. So please come on my show, David. Come and sit across from me or beside me here, and talk to me about what you want to do with EMS, why you think you're going to be a good director. Because right now, from what I understand, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people like, David, yeah, that's right. I'm sure they are. I'm not hearing from them. The people I'm hearing from are the ones going, holy crap, that day in Savannah on Friday that I wasn't there we heard from a lot of people like, man, they came out mad. Just like Tom and I came out mad and not understanding everything. It felt confrontational on that Saturday day, right? But as they're going through, EJ and Kelly and other people are really trying to smooth that out and explain it better. So now the terminology is proposed. Now the terminology is, we're working on it. Yeah, you will be required down the line, but here's what the steps we're taking now. We're going to put in a system. Once we get you into the system, we're going to let you know you're in the system, and here's how you're going to use it with your students. And then we'll come and do a workshop and all this other stuff. Here's what they're trying. I will say one thing that was not explained very well in the first time in Savannah, that was explained well Tuesday, was that they're trying to connect reports together and give you, the medic, which is something I would have loved on the truck, patient outcome information, right? So the fire service gets on scene, and they have their own report. And then the ambulance gets on scene, and it has its own report. And those go into a system. They don't always go to the hospital. Like the fire report goes into its own system. Well, the ambulance, we leave a copy of the ER. Well, then that patient gets transported by helicopter, who has its own report. The hospital has its own report, right? You see where I'm going here. It's all these different reports that end up at the final hospital. And this Georgia or GEMSIS Elite system is connecting them all together. Or the GEMSIS system, rather, is connecting them all together so that that final hospital doesn't have to go through a stack of papers and hope that it all made it through. They get to type in the information, and boom, here's the fire report. Here's the EMS report. Here's the hospital one. Here's the helicopter. And then they put in their own reports. And then that comes back to the service provider. So me as a medic, I get to know when I saw them practically dead on the street, and I know that I kept them alive because I put a tube in their throat and I breathed for them, and I kept everything stable until the helicopter could get there. And then that's the last I know. Now what they're working towards is at some point, hopefully in the near future, right? Because, the longer it takes for somebody to get out of the hospital, the less likely the outcome is going to be positive. But now I get to find out what happened. Not detail. I don't imagine it's detailed reports of they went to surgery here and they did this, but patient outcome of they ended up with this, and this fixable. Some of this wasn't fixable. Here's the loss. Patient outcomes. So what you're doing means something. You're a part of a system, yet we've always been isolated as medics. Anyway, that's part of what's going on. The other big thing I talked about, degrees, right? It absolutely came out from David Newton that he wants paramedics to have degrees. And boom, my arm went up in Savannah. And boom, I'm like, why? Why would you require degrees from paramedics when nobody pays for it? And there was an argument about that, right? No. So this is where I got called out. A little bit. Where's my button? There's my button. So Kelly says, we will not be requiring paramedics to have degrees for anyone. When they got to the side, she was very clear. Did you hear about the national standards that came out? Did you read them? And boom, she talked about the accreditation. Did you hear about the national standards? Did you read them? She talked about adding skills. Boom, did you hear about the national standards? Because the national standards recommends continuing to educate yourself to get higher level of education, higher degrees. But let me be clear, we are not requiring, nor in the near future, because they're never going to say never, right? But there's no plans to require paramedics to have a degree. Let me be this. I'm just quoting her. Let me be very clear. Some of you have said, she didn't look at me, so I don't know if she's calling me out. I don't mind. I absolutely said it. Tom and I sat here on the show and said it because that's exactly what we heard from David Newton, and we challenged him right there in the room. But we're fair. We are fair here on EMS Underground. That is my ultimate thing. Is I want to give everybody to give the answers. I'm going to ask the questions. You bring the answers. And if I don't have answers, I'm going to tell you what I think about it. But I'll let you sit here and tell your side. Even if we disagree, I'll let you tell your side of the story. And if I go to something like this update and I hear changes, I'm going to come back and tell you what those changes are. And this one was, she said, let me be clear. Some of you said we're requiring paramedic. We are not requiring paramedic degrees at all. We are recommending and trying to make it open and trying to work with the institutions that that will make it easier for paramedics to go on and get bachelor's degrees or master's degrees without leaving the field, without going on to be a nurse practitioner or a PA or something that leaves the field of EMS. Isn't, and it's like, no, fair enough. Fair enough that you're clarifying that. And I didn't raise my hand. I didn't start. I was like, no, but that was me. I was absolutely one of those people who came out of there saying that because that's exactly how it felt. That's exactly what it sounded like. So, no. Now, some Vandora, who sat down there with David Briscoe, she raised her hand. It's like, but what's the incentive to get a degree? Because as a paramedic with National Registry, I get paid the same rate as a paramedic with a degree. And Kelly's honest answer was, well, as a state, we're not requiring a degree, so there's no incentives that we can give. Now, hopefully, the state will help find grants or funding to give to businesses or to give to those paramedics to say, hey, you want to improve yourself? Here's a grant that we found that we did the heavy lifting. We wrote the big-ass grant paper you have to write to get it, to help you get this money, basically pay you to go to school, okay? Or maybe, honestly, we got to take a look at reimbursement. We have to. We have to get medicine paid for equally. And, this BS of ALS gets paid one flat fee for reimbursement or 40%, all this crap. We have to get more money into EMS for then it to matter, right? We have to make the money's what talks. So that's a whole other conversation. I'm going to digress because I want to talk about the rest of this update. But that is another conversation that I'd love to have with a whole bunch of people. Whoever wants to come on, hit me up, Charles at GAIEMS.com. Let me know. You want to come on and talk about insurance and how we can fix it or how we can encourage places to pay better, because medics, it should be like nurses and doctors, right? You should have a reason to get more initials behind your name or more education because you're going to earn more money, because it's going to matter to the people who are paying the money in. Because you ask somebody who's daddy, because if you ask the person who had it, I don't know what kind of answer you'll get. But if you go, your daddy had a heart attack, would you rather have a paramedic who has a baseline education and did a great job? Don't get me wrong, not knocking them. But would you rather have the baseline education person show up or the person who has all this extra education and this better understanding of how the heart works and just knows more because they spent more time and money and energy in school to help your father and save their life? The answer is always going to be, give me more. Now, if you ask that same person, would you pay more for that? The answer might be, no, give me the dollar store medic. And I was a dollar store medic. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely was a dollar store medic, man. 6 months and 60 freaking clinical hours. I look back and go, how the hell did I not kill 1 million people in my first year being a medic? I had very little education time and very little experience clinical-wise. Now, I'd spent 2.5, 3 years in the field before I was a medic. But, yeah, I'm a dollar store medic. So when I call it that, that's me, right? Incentive has to be there. Otherwise, why? Why bother? For the sake of knowledge? Yeah, there's Tom, man. Tom's out there. He loves stuff for the sake of knowledge. Not me. I'm a mechanic. I want to go in, know how to. Here's the problem, A, B, C. I fixed it. And if A is just transport, boom, I'll transport. I'm not egotistical that way. I don't have to be a ditch doctor. But by God, I want to fix the problem, whatever I have to do that. I don't need knowledge for knowledge's sake. Anyway. They're not going to be required at all. They're not going to require associate's degrees or any degrees. It's just a recommendation as far as better education, okay? Then we talked about instructors are not being prepared how to teach, and that's becoming a big, obvious thing in the zeitgeist of EMS, the social understanding of what we do inside of our own industry. We've all heard the term death by PowerPoint, and I hate it. And the state is very aware, and they want to do more about that. And I actually got to sit in on a discussion about that today. I'm not going to say much about that because it was just a discussion, and I'm hoping to be a big part of that discussion and help instruct instructors, basically. Let's bring better teaching to the table, and let's get more on the same page of how we teach so that, let's be real, we're competitors. Absolutely. We're all sitting in that room. We're all essentially competitors to each other. 2 private schools were there, Faithful Guardian and myself, being Georgia Institute of EMS. We had a couple of fire chiefs and educators that when they hire you to be a firefighter, they put you through their own school. That's a bit of a competitor, right? If I want to be a firefighter and you want me to EMT, but you'll pay me to do that, why wouldn't I go there instead of pay Georgia Institute of EMS? So we're all competitive. That competition should be on how we connect with those students before they come into the school. It never should be what we're teaching and how we're teaching in the school. We should be very similar in those styles. Now, we might offer different ways to do it, so on and so forth. I heard something that Faithful Guardian did that I thought was kind of cool, but not going to steal it because we already kind of do something similar. But they were open about it. With my patch sitting right, they know who I am. I mean, they see the patch, right? My patch sitting right here. It says Georgia Institute of EMS. But they openly said, this is one thing we do. And the state facilitated this conversation, and the state is going to facilitate more of these conversations. That's a big thing. And then we got clarification. So anybody's ever asked, man, if I get a back valve mask on the job, can I count it as my clinical ride? One of the very clear things they said, because David Briscoe asked that. I think somebody else was asking clarification on that. Here's the final clarification that I got that was given rather at this update about how you have to be a clinical student. There has to be 2 state-mandated employees on that ambulance, service providers, healthcare providers is what I'm trying to say. On there, you have to be a 3rd. You cannot be one of the 2 state-mandated healthcare providers on that vehicle for it to count as a clinical, which absolutely means the FTO I rode with at AMR, who was letting his partner, who was going to paramedic school, document everything like it was a clinical ride, absolutely 100% illegal and out. And now that I know that, I wish I'd reported them because it was a bad day for me. I had to fight. I had to blatantly fight to get, no, I'm here as the official student. I'm going to stick these IVs. I'm going to do what I need to do to get stuff done, period. And I just disagreed fully that as a partner, as an advanced partner, that she was not just, I mean, fine. I practiced under the guide of my paramedic when I was in the field. He said, okay, I've got your back, but I'm going to let you go in and take lead on this call and tell me what you need. And I'm not going to let you fail. I'm not going to let you hurt the patient. I get that. But none of those hours counted for me. And she was sitting there just documenting away like she rode a 3rd ride. And God, that chapped my ass. And I found out you cannot do that. Now, here's the flip side. Let's say you're riding the fire truck and you're a student and you're on the call and the ambulance crew comes in and you ride in with them. You can count that as long as you have a clinical agreement. You know, all the other stuff has to be in place, right? It has to be an approved preceptor by your school. It has to be a clinical agreement with that place. But the easy solution is, right, Gwinnett Fire, all in one. You're a firefighter, you're going to advanced school, whatever. You can ride in, it can count. You can be paid. So it's not about getting paid or not paid. The state does not care if you get paid during your clinicals. They care if you're one of the mandated required crew on that ambulance provider. So there's that answer. So that was that. We'll take a quick break here, and then we'll get into the Region 3 EMS meeting. That was very, very interesting. And, yeah, so here's my quick plug for Patreon. If you're on patreon.com/911 Studios, I can even put that on the screen right now. Patreon.com/911 Studios. You're not even hearing this part of the show because I cut this out. There's no ads on the Patreon version. So go to patreon.com, little as $1 a month to help support what we're doing. You know, I went out and I did 3 hours of coverage on this meeting today. I did 8 hours of coverage on this update. I didn't need to go through the update. I already had it. So it helps cover expenses and those kind of things. It helps get you the information you want. I've already talked to a whole bunch of people. Chief Fulham has said he'll be on the show from Dekalb County. I talked to some other chiefs today, and the new I'm bad with names. The new head, the new chair of the EMS Region 3 Council, and quite possibly, because I'm going to give them some time to breathe, right? I just want to name now. It's killing me. I know I put it in my notes. Rich Elliott, Chief Elliott. He's tentatively agreed to talk with me. So to be able to go and meet with them where they need to meet, make those things happen during the day. Your support matters. It helps us grow. It helps you get the information you're looking for. So, patreon.com/911 studios. And another way you can help, of course, is by listening to this ad. So here you go. For you, the listeners and viewers of EMS Underground, you can get $50 off on your order of Grasshopper. Now, some of the features, man, we talked about it before, Tom. It rolls right to your cell phone. So nobody ever has to have your cell phone number. Nobody has to have your private information. And you don't have to have any extra equipment. No extra anything. It's an app on the computer. It's an app on your phone. You tell it to roll it to your phone number. Boom, it comes up with your business's name and number. When you call the client back, it comes up with that number. It's perfect. It's easy. We use it here at Georgia Institute of EMS. So if you're one of those side hustle people like I always was, and you're trying that business out, get Grasshopper. Go to trygrasshopper.com/EMS Underground for your $50 off on your order. And it's as little as $12 a month. I want to say, I'm flipping through my little papers just to verify that here. But yeah, plans start at $12 a month. So to save $50 on your order, go to trygrasshopper.com/EMS Underground. And there you go. It'll be awesome. So we hope you do that. Help you out. Help us out. All good stuff. All righty then. So most of the meeting at the EMS Region 3 Council today was standard reporting, like I said before. So it's into your stuff. We talked about, I mentioned earlier, we talked about grants and those kind of things, that kind of stuff. And we got to the 2 reviews. Actually, I forgot about one. I forgot about the South Fulton Grady review. I was looking for the Dekalb one as I have a vested interest in seeing what's going on there. So we get to the South Fulton review. John Hanson from Grady, who I want to say is he was a VP or something. He's a higher up at Grady, right? And Joe Bearswain, I think I wrote down. I don't think I wrote that right. Sometimes I'll correct. I'm typing fast. I don't know shorthand, so I'm typing very fast, right, and trying to get this information written down. But Joe was the representative from South Fulton on the Grady side, and then the Grady Hospital executive was there. And before they even stood up to present, I did not catch Pete's name. These names go by so fast, but Pete is what they kept calling him. When they said it's time for the Grady review, Pete apparently had been on the zoning commission when South Fulton requested EMS Region 3 to look at replacing the provider, which was AMR at the time. And so he started out with, hey, it's been over. I'm paraphrasing, right? I'm not mocking him. I'm not trying to make him sound idiotic. Here's the disclaimer. Anything that sounds idiotic is coming out of my mouth, okay, right now. But he says, basically, my verbal shorthand is, hey, it's been over a year since we've done this. We've been having to do reports all the time. And immediately I'm going, I know RC Moyers at the last meeting is like, hey, when we're going to take Grady off the docket. This is feeling like you're in Grady's pocket. That's just the feeling I got immediately. Just the vibe, the energy was, you're trying to let Grady slide by here. That's nothing he said blatantly made me feel that way. It's just that vibe. As soon as he started going, because he led with, before he said anything, before we got any kind of report or presentation, he led with, it's been over a year now, and I say if we get, I think he called it satisfactory, but if we get I say decent enough, right? That's the vibe I got. So I'm using the words decent enough. If we get a decent enough report, that we take him off the review, that they don't have to review it anymore. He spent a good 2 minutes on basically saying, let's let Grady off the hook. Let's let him not have to report to us anymore. And then he went, okay, now I'm going to turn it over to John Hanson and Joe. Again, I think it's Bearswain, but that might have not written down correctly, to report. So John Hanson gets up there and he's talking about how now they have one CAD. Before we had 2 different CAD systems, and we're trying for transparency. He used the word transparency a lot. He also used the word goal a lot. And goal is synonymous with 9 minutes. Never once did the word 9 minutes come out of his mouth. Not one time. In fact, they weren't even going to report response times until somebody asked. I'll talk about that in a second. But he called it goal, and he kept saying we're working towards transparency and our goal. So they're having one CAD system. now. I say quoting fingers now because it says we have one CAD system and it'll be fully operational by maybe February 2020. Do you have one CAD system or not, man? That's gotta hate CEOs, and I hate political speak and corporate speak. It's such a dance. And I know I'm being extra hard on this, but it's because I came up with so much BS around me in the EMS field of spin and this. No, let's call what is. We are still working on it. It's mostly integrated. Whatever the truth is, give me the truth. Stop sugarcoating it. Stop trying to make yourself look better. Just say, yeah, freaking lied. You lied when you said you could do 9 minutes, and you still ain't there. So they talk about one CAD system, how it's all going to be transparent. We'll be able to pull numbers easily, this, that. Okay. He said finish by first quarter of 2020. So that's March at the latest, because January, February, March is the quarter, right? So Grady believes that their goal, they said their goal. Somebody said, the first question after his little presentation was, the question was, is your goal achievable? Yes. Or do you believe your goal is achievable? I don't know who asked it, so I'm not going to drag anybody through the mud, but I was like, I almost wanted to scream at them. Of course they're going to say they believe it. They don't want to lose this county. Nobody who wants to hold on to it, got it with a lie in the first place, is going to say, no, we don't believe it's achievable. Well, then get the hell out is what they're going to say. So yes, Grady believes that 9 minutes is achievable, but is a goal, and they had to admit it has not been hit yet. Somebody asked them, have you met your goal? And they had to say, no, we have not reached our goals yet. Now, here are the numbers. Other people started piping up on it because Pete was trying to run it. And I don't know Pete. I don't know you, Pete. I might like to get to know you. I don't know, but I'm telling you, my first impression, my vibe is you were on Team Grady, and you are trying to just let them dance and use fancy little words like goal instead of saying 9 minutes. You're letting them dance because other people started asking the hard questions like, what are your response times now? Here are the numbers. On average, for 911 emergency calls, right? Not just 911, sorry, but for the priority calls, they are at 12 to 14 minutes average. AMR was at 13 minutes when they got kicked out of the county, and Grady swooped in and said they can do 9. Not one damn time. No, yeah, you have outliers because it's an average, right? You might have some outliers of shorter times in the city, but then you have much longer times in the rural areas that offset that. And they even said you have cities and you have rural areas and you have this average. So, yeah, they're a little bit faster and slow. But no, they're not hitting it. They're not even hitting freaking AMR numbers. A year later, they're not hitting it. This is a problem to me. And that's what they had. And they said slight improvements over the months. And they're encouraged that there's been improvements. And no, I'm glad they didn't. They did not get let off the hook. They will have to report indefinitely until the committee is satisfied. And they were asked specifically, are you measuring by cities or individual cities or the area as a county? And they said both. We're because each of the cities in South Fulton are wanting to know the information. And so we're measuring by cities and feeding it back to the fire chiefs and the powers that be. But we're also looking at the county as a whole, also giving that information to those who need it. Another question that was asked, are trucks being moved back and forth from Fulton County to South Fulton County? Or it was phrased from Atlanta or from Grady to South Fulton, but that's what they mean. And they said it's mutual aid. So they kind of dodged it, but I felt like, I'm going to say, I felt like I believed them. I felt like I believed they weren't just sliding trucks back and forth like, oh, go cover this area right now. I don't know, but in that answer, it actually felt like a truth. I'm one of those tabloid shows, and the lie detector results are in, and you're not the father. Now I felt like it's the truth. I felt like you were being honest about that question of it's mutual aid. They have 2 different dispatch centers, so it's not just sliding trucks shadily across the lines of zones. So that's what they said. I did believe them. Again, before a motion was even mentioned, somebody's like, I would like to hear from the fire chiefs in South Fulton County and what their honest take on it is. Nobody was there. So instantly they said, well, I'm not comfortable even voting on anything until we hear from the fire chiefs. And whoever's involved in the politics of this, who have to provide this kind of service, what they have to say about your response times. So since there were no fire chiefs present, they started a motion. And then there was a second motion. So it got a little confusing for a second, but the two motions were this. First motion was they need to review again at the next meeting, which would be February of 2020. They need to review. That got amended to they need to review indefinitely. In the middle of that, Chief Elliott actually piped up and said, "Hey, it's been a year." I mean, he didn't go bulldog on him like I might have. And I don't know if I'm sitting at that table and I have the title chief on my shirt, which I don't. There's a reason I don't. I like being the loudmouth asshole that I am. But if I might have phrased it more politically than I'm phrasing it here on the show. So I'm not dogging out Chief Elliott at all. But he said it felt like he was talking about they're not meeting their numbers, so we need somebody to really look at it. The way he phrased it basically was, at a year of this going on and then doing reports, and we're only getting not me. I think he may or may not have referenced the goal. I honestly don't want to put words in his mouth. But basically, do we need an ad hoc committee to review in depth and talk to everybody in depth in that county like we, because Chief Elliott's on the one for Dekalb, like we do for Dekalb? And immediately Pete kind of said, well, if we're going to do that, why don't we put together the original zoning commission? And I'm thinking personally, the hell you say, because you were on that commission, number one, and you gave it to Grady. Number two, everybody on that commission gave it to Grady. So, I mean, in fact, the words were put out there that there were unanimous letters from each of the cities and from the county government in South Fulton that they wanted to replace the provider. And I actually messaged Terrence from AMR about that. I said, was it unanimous that they wanted to kick you guys out? And he said, no, it wasn't unanimous. It was I forget what he said, but basically no, the answer was no. So the way it was phrased by Pete about being unanimous, there's just misleading crap here that's bothering me. And so, no, I don't want you to be able to bulldog a committee into saying that everything's fine. If we're going to do this, we need to have new, fresh bodies on it. And so that kind of went back and forth, as did the review. But here's what the ultimate landing point was. There'll be an ad hoc committee of 5 people. They had to avoid conflicts. I didn't get every name, but here's what I wrote down. Dr. McDougall is going to be on that committee. Pete, who's now the vice chair of EMS Region 3 Council. Sue, who's a chief somewhere. I didn't quite catch where she's a chief. Carly, and then a name I missed, right? And then everybody passed the motion. So basically, South Fulton has its own ad hoc council that is going, their direction is do what this other council did in the cab. Go in, get the numbers, get the, fractals is what they call them. Get the fractals, which is like the minute down to these numbers, whatever. Talk to the chiefs, talk to the Grady, talk to everybody involved. Look at everything. You are supposed to be the impartial party to find out what's actually going on here. So that got done. And then the motion was passed to continue to review Grady and South Fulton indefinitely. So that's going until the council is satisfied with the providership. And the outgoing chair gave a good little speech about how it's not just about 911 numbers and response times. We have to look at the service of the county and are the people being served, because that's what the Region 3 Council, that's heart is, are the people being served appropriately? And if not, can we make changes or do we make replacements? That's what they're looking at. So that happened. And I was still upset that nobody's saying, hey, wait a minute, we gave you the contract for this, or the whatever. We gave you the power to run EMS in this county, and you're just now, a year later, to your competitor who was booted out. You're just now to their numbers, and you're not giving us a clear plan on this promise of 9 minutes, yet you believe it's achievable. No, why are we not calling BS? So then we move on to the Dekalb County review. So the ad hoc council turned over their time to the attorney, Vivian. I didn't catch her last name. It was a little hard to hear in that room where I was sitting. But Vivian, who is the lawyer for Dekalb County, because they'd had an ad hoc council meeting before this meeting today. and she had presented information, and so they yielded their time to her to present it. And she talked about how the request for proposal is still under review, right? They supposedly were supposed to be done in the spring. This is what Councilman Terry Knoll kept bitching about, was they keep kicking the can down the road. Well, that's how politics work, Terry. And I'm sorry you built your whole damn platform on the fact that you were going to rail EMS and get done with its own EMS, and that failed. So then you didn't get voted to be mayor of Dunwoody. Sorry, dude, you lost. You shouldn't have built a platform on coming at us, bro. You should have done it differently. And yeah, that's how I see it, and that's where I stand. Anyway, she said there's been some. It's still in process. She can't discuss all the issues legally. That's why they sent the lawyer, right, to say, there's can say is that in the process of taking the proposals and reviewing it, some business and legal issues have arisen, but evaluation is close to being done. The contract extension with AMR will terminate on December 31st of this year, so 2019. She does anticipate decisions will be made before the termination, and does not anticipate any need to extend that current contract. Right? That doesn't mean AMR is out. That's very specific language saying this contract extension that is just rolling over will not be rolling anymore. It'll be an official, this is the proposal that we want to accept. This is what we're going to go forward to. Now, here's where I'm unclear. Is DeKalb County sovereign, and they get to pick their own EMS, and what's done is done, and they just report it to the council, and the council goes, okay? Or do they have to bring it to the council for approval? I didn't even think to ask that question when I was talking to people today. It just popped in my mind now, so I don't know. But essentially, the next meeting is not until February. So they believe DeKalb County officially has stated they believe they'll have everything resolved before the contract terminates on December 31st, and that specific contract will not need to be extended. They did not give any hints as to what they're going to do or any kind of decisions that they might be considering making. Then Chief Fulham was asked to give a report, and he talked about here, and he brought copies of the numbers for everybody on the council. Here's the new numbers, here's this and that and the other, and did a basic one, which is that this is right after, keep in mind, this is right after South Fulton had a report that Grady is only doing 12 to 14-minute response times at their fastest. That ALS average for the entire county, the average of ALS calls is 9.36 minutes. I was like, oh, nobody else is clapping for that? Okay. Are you serious? Are you serious that we're not clapping for that? The complaint that idiot Councilman Knoll brought was, oh, this family had to wait for 30 minutes for an ambulance. F off, man. The firefighters were there. F off. Secondly, the average that they were bringing to the table, I believe that we talked about, was 16 to 18 minutes response time. Because I remember looking up Cobb County's numbers and Gwinnett County's numbers to compare them. But it was a little high. So let's say 16 to 18 minutes was their average then. Now it is 9 minutes and 36 seconds, and we're not going to address that. We're not going to acknowledge, good job, AMR, good job, DeKalb County, for being able to make those changes and serve your public. Good job. Nobody said that. BLS calls, which is a non-emergent, it's been determined, you call 911, but it's a stub-toe type of deal, right? 11.33 minutes. So still, BLS is under the fastest freaking time that Grady is providing in South Fulton. And DeKalb is way larger than South Fulton. I'm just saying. That's all county. He specified that as all county. Additional units were posted in Dunwoody since the last meeting, and one additional unit. So Dunwoody has, I think, 3 dedicated or 2 dedicated and 1 during the day just for Dunwoody city area. But an additional unit has been added to that area, and it posts at an intersection during peak hours, basically. So they've put more response up in Dunwoody, even though it's beyond what they promised to do. They've done beyond. They being DeKalb. So I don't know if it's a DeKalb response unit or if it's AMR. I'm not sure who's fulfilling that. I just know that another unit's been put up there. Currently, they have 5 rapid response units that are doing really, really well. They got permission. They got clearance from the county to hire 20 paramedic-only staff with the goal to. They have 2 transport units right now that are back up in busy areas that have paramedics and EMTs. Those 2 units are going to go to paramedic only, and they're looking to add more units to transport in other areas that will be paramedic only as well. And it's becoming this hybrid. And that's something they talked about. We'll get to that in a second. But it's becoming this hybrid system that might be one of the first in the nation. That is county and private combined, right? Not side by side, but actually flowing and working together. They didn't really elaborate, right? But that's what it sounds like it's getting to, and they did mention that. They're also studying the hospitals, not just in their county, but in the area that get transported to very in-depthly, was Chief Fulham's quote, that they've gotten a lot of in-depth details about these hospitals. And I'm inferring now the turnaround times, why ambulances are getting hung up. What can the counties do to help with that? You know, those kind of things. So they're actually looking at that as well, which I was impressed by. Then they were asked direct. So Pete, Vice Chair Pete, he's now Vice Chair. I don't know if he's Vice Chair before, but he's now Vice Chair. We'll talk about that in a second. Pete started saying, and at first, just because of the Grady thing, I just was like, Pete, but I listened to him, and he just sounded like he's getting clarification on what's going on. And he's like, what are the response times of fire? No. When is response time calculated? Is it when 911 calls? Is it when they're behind the seat of the truck? So he very much asked that. And what is the rapid response times right now? The rapid response vehicles on average are at 6 minutes and 59 seconds. So 3 minutes before the ambulance is the rapid response. And they're paramedics and EMTs on there. They just don't transport. So you're getting ALS response in 6 minutes from fire, and then another additional 3 minutes for the transport unit to come in, okay, on average. And he was like, what's going on with rapid response? Are they static? Are they fluid? He goes, no, they're static at those stations, and they are 24-hour trucks. These Ford, I think they're a crew cab, Ford F-250, F-350 crew cabs with a modified back with tools and stuff on them. So they're static, and they are 24 hours. These transport units are static and fluid. So he said they'll be both, but they're also 24-hour trucks. They'll augment private services, basically moving to a hybrid contract service as opposed to contract only as it's been during this last 5-year run of AMR. So so at first I thought Pete was kind of being antagonistic, but it really was some good clarifying questions. So Pete, if you watch this, I thought they were good questions. At first I was just like, but once I try to be fair. I try to, even though if I judge, I want to see, is my judgment standing up, or is what is actually being said, if I can hear it with clear ears, is it good? And the questions asked were fine. These were fine questions. Are these static? And really good answers from Chief Fulham. So then the very final piece of business was the nominating committee. And this is where I lost some of the names. But we got some new staff. I don't know if some of these people have positions already, but there's a new chair, and that is Chief Rich Elliott. And that's who has led the Dekalb ad hoc committee. That's who I thought has done a really good job with the Dekalb committee and the situation in Dekalb. And when I talked to him personally today, he said, no, and he said it publicly as well. That's not us. We really just kind of facilitated. That's all Chief Fulham. That's all AMR. That's all of them working together. And really, the Dekalb fire, really, really going in and seeing what they needed to do. That's on them. But he's going to be the new chair. And I'm happy with that right now. I want to see what he does because he's not afraid to challenge things he doesn't like. Oh, that's one last. Let me jump back. Sorry. Let me jump back to LMS, which is the license management system for Georgia. At one of at the previous meeting, Chief Elliott was the one that asked if somebody gets investigated, right? And they're working at 3 different services or 2 different services, and they get investigated and something happens, they get penalized. Are we going to get notified? And EJ said at that time, I don't know. I have no control over that. I know if you call my office, I can't just tell you that right now. There's legal things, whatever. The update is yes. Yes, for the services of that person. So if I'm working for Tom EMS service and I'm working for AMR, and then maybe I pull some part-time at AmeriPro, I'm registered at all three of those services was working. And then I do something under Tom's watch and I get investigated by the state. And maybe I get fined or I get suspended for 3 months or whatever, whatever it is. That goes into the LMS system, and those three services can look it up and see it, but they will get notified. Charles McFall was investigated. This is what we found. This was the punishment. She goes, you might not see the actual fine amount or something, but you'll know if it's suspended or fined or something like that. So that's an update. I forgot to mention that earlier because it reminded us Chief Elliott was the one who brought that up, saying we really should be notified. I mean, at Clayton County, they have, I think he said they had 1,000 employees or something like that they're having to maintain their numbers and this and that and the other. And they don't have time to go looking up each one of them all the time, even once a week, to see if they're suspended or not, that kind of thing. So that was a good update. How big is AMR? This big. I don't know. Thanks for setting me up for the joke there, Danny. How big is AMR? At their peak time, right now, they're running. John Jenkins, if you're still in, maybe you can answer that a little bit better. John works with AMR over there. But if I remember correctly, they're working 40 to 42 trucks at peak on the street at any given time. So it definitely goes up and down. I think at the lowest point, it's 32 trucks. So they're doing shift changes, basically one truck every hour. And sometimes more than that, obviously, but every hour is having some kind of shift change. Now, if you're just talking about AMR and Dekalb, there's that. Terrence, when he was here last on the show, we were talking after, and he said in the state of Georgia, because they have some other areas they service as well, I want to say AMR has 900 employees in the state of Georgia, but they're also part of Global. So I mean, that's an interesting question, Danny. But and hopefully what information I gave you there helps you understand it. But the nominating committee. So the new chair starting in 2020 is going to be Chief Elliott. The vice chair is going to be Pete. And I'm sorry, Pete. I'm not trying to be rude. I really did not catch your last name, and I was trying to catch EJ to ask her some questions. And I was catching Chief Elliott to ask him some questions and Chief Fulham. So I just ran out of time to catch people to ask questions. Secretary is going to be Charles somebody. I didn't catch his last name at all. And then the parliamentarian, I did not even catch who that was going to be. Nobody wanted to run against anybody else because that's how it works. It's an election. So the nominating committee brings these people. And then as this is who we nominate, but then anybody on the council can say, I would like to run for that. I don't know what the process would be because nobody indicated they want to run against any of these people for these seats. So then, of course, they motion to pass it, and then it passed unanimously. So that is it changes. Now, Danny, I'm not really sure what you're asking about is that national there because on a national level, AMR, they've got hundreds of thousands of employees. I mean, you got almost 1,000,000 in Georgia alone. They've got, and that's in 2 counties, I think, in Georgia. They've got counties in Florida. They've got counties all over. I know out in California. So nationally, I'm going to guess AMR has got 100,000 employees. Easy. Now, the Georgia reporting, if you're asking about that, it's just Georgia. Georgia, GEMSIS, GEMSIS.org/LMS, LMS being Licensing Management System. Okay. That's a Georgia tracking that's going live. I mean, it's live now. They've been doing rollouts. New certifications can go through there. As of January, recertifications will go there. Instructor stuff will go there. New services will go there. I mean, all kind of stuff will be tracked through the system. And so what I was talking about with that reporting is that's only in the state of Georgia. Now, when you apply for a new certification, one of the questions is, have you ever, or do you currently hold a license for this in another state, EMS, any level in another state? And so they will check other states because they want to know. The state of Georgia wants to know if you've been suspended somewhere else for sure. But the reporting will only be here in Georgia as far as where you work currently. But yes, AMR is in California. They are, okay, so just to give you a little heads up, and then we'll wrap the show up here, Danny. AMR is part of GMR, Global Medical Response. They are the largest ambulance company, private ambulance company in the world now. They've been number one in the United States for a long time, and now they're number one in the world. So more than likely, I'm guessing you'll probably see AMR ambulances somewhere in every state in the U.S. There's that. All right, that's going to be it for today. So those two big things to update you on. Good stuff, some good stuff. Some stuff that I'm still questionable about, still obviously railing against. But, like I said, on EMS Underground, I ask the questions, and I really, truly want answers, and it's up to all of us to find those answers. If somebody's not giving them to us, let's go out and find somebody who will give them to us. And that's why I'm aiming to have, in the new year, I'm aiming to have Chief Elliott on. I'm aiming to have Chief Fulham on. I've been trying to get Courtney Twilliger on. I was supposed to have him on this past week, and scheduling things happened and changed, and he wasn't able to come on this week. But yeah, I want to talk to people. I've already told EJ Daly, when you retire, I want to do a 3-part series on you. I want to know your personal history of how you came up through EMS and why you did what you did. I want to know how your job worked. And that second part is going to be how your job worked as a Region 3 director, and the changes you saw and the good you did and what you wish you could have done. And then the third part is going to be the horror stories. Tell me all the crap you couldn't say when you were employed. I want to hear it all. And I actually saw her I saw her again today, but I saw her Tuesday, and I said that to her, and she just laughed. She didn't say yes or no, so we're going to see. But that's one of my goals, is to have people on who know what we're talking about. Also, I want to make this more of a nationally based show. So if you're listening in another state, and we've had people comment here that were in Indiana or New Jersey or California, they've commented here on Facebook. By all means, I think I actually did a show with somebody who is in New Jersey and comparing how EMS in Georgia works to how EMS works there where he was. I want to do that. It's not just here's where we are, microcosm of what we talk about. Because the other shows that I do, or the other episodes that I do, is the life of EMS, stuff that touches everybody across the board. And we want to talk about your issues. If you're in Colorado and your district, your region, whatever you call it there, is having issues of any kind that you need somebody to talk to about, that you need us to, I'll be more than happy to make some, they might not talk to me, they might not care, but I'll come on, hey, this is Charles from EMS Underground. I understand you're having some issues in this county. This is what I'm seeing reported. Would you care to let me ask you some questions, and you can tell me your side of it? Help us understand what's going on. That is what I am here for. That is what EMS Underground is here for. So please do that. And again, patreon.com/911 studios. You can help us out. You can help grow the show, get us the ability to talk to more people. And by all means, the biggest thing you can do to help me out today is tell people about the show. It is a podcast, anchor.fm/EMS Underground. Georgia Institute of EMS.com/EMS Underground. Both of those are ways you can find the podcast version of this. And again, of course, through Patreon, you'll get the ad-free of this, where you don't have to hear me read the ads and talk about how you can support us, those kind of things, because you will already be supporting the show. I appreciate you all. Go out there, be safe, but never, ever, ever be afraid to ask why. Ask what's going on. Get that information, get that education, and sometimes simply by asking, we can actually change the world. I'm